Okay, we're back for episode 2 of the new Clint Bryant show. And Coach, there were 6 games on Saturday between ranked opponents, top 25 opponents, and you were at one of them. Clemson hosting Miami. You were part of the Clemson basketball reunion. You've been an assistant coach there, and you've been the associate head coach at Miami. So big day for you. Tell us all about it.
Oh, it was an exciting day, Chad. There's no question about it. And like we talked last week, there was a tremendous crowd there, and it was Military Appreciation Day. Right before the game, the national anthem was special, and the big flag on the floor. And right after that, coming down from the rafters on a court landing was the tiger coming down out the rafters and being kind of like flown in, you know. And so that was all exciting. But it was a good time. We had over 90 people show up for the reunion, and the oldest guy was 90 years old, and I thought that was pretty special for him to walk out on the floor and be recognized. But a heck of a basketball game. Miami has a very good basketball team, and Clemson has a good team. Unfortunately, Clemson lost last week on the road to Boston College. And that happens. We've been talking about home court advantage makes a difference. And when you go to places as a ranked team, you're going to get good crowds there. And so they lost a close game. And the game was 35-35 at half. First half played very well. But Miami comes out and hit 5 in a row, and 3 of those 5 was three-pointers. And Clemson was never able to get themselves closer than 4 points in the second half. They cut it to 5 and 4 a couple of times, and their last run was about at 5-minute mark, but it just wasn't enough. And so that was the first time Clemson had lost at home all year. They had won 12 games in a row, and I was hoping that they were going to match our mark that we had in 1980-81 when we won 15 home games. We won every home game, and so now they're 12-1. I shared with Brad, the coach, last night that I said, you lost the battle, you lost the fight, but you haven't lost the war. I still think Clemson will be pretty good. They'll get an NCAA seed somewhere between 6 and 9 probably. But anything can happen right now. I mean, Virginia going to Virginia Tech and getting beat the other day. Again, that's what's going to happen as we come down the end of the season, as we try to get seedings for the ACC tournament. And then who knows what might happen at the ACC tournament. You got a lot of people playing well in the ACC. NC State being one of those people. I have NC State this week as high as number 11. I think they got an exceptional basketball team, and they might have the best team right now in the ACC. Pitt's good. Pitt has a very good basketball team. And we can't forget about Virginia Tech, who was thought very highly of early in the year, lost 7 in a row, but they've been making a comeback here lately. And so it's going to be interesting as we finish up this last 3 weeks to a month of the regular season. And as we've talked about, Chad, home court advantage makes a difference. Every basketball game I watched this weekend, the home courts were unbelievable. I think the best game I saw all weekend was Gonzaga at St. Mary's. That was a heck of a game in a little arena, but that was seat but 5,800 people. But man, that place was rocking.
I totally agree. I watched that one too, late night, Saturday night. So what was it? St. Mary's won in overtime, 78-70. Trailed the whole game. Didn't lead until the overtime session. He said 5,800. I looked up the box score, and it said that 3,500 were in attendance. I don't know what that thing seats, but they had that thing packed wall to wall with students, crazy students. And this guy Aiden Mahaney, the freshman, they say he grew up a few miles away from St. Mary's. They say he had plenty of offers. I looked up, saw the likes of Arizona in there offering him, and he decided to stay at home at St. Mary's. He had 2 points in the first half, 16 in the second. He took over down the stretch, didn't he?
Yeah, took over down the stretch, and then it goes back to show you again that freshmen still can make a difference on college basketball teams. one of the things that I think the transfer portal has done is disadvantage high school players, where people are going to the transfer portal first and then considering the high school player. And so I think the high school player is getting a raw deal out of this thing, and because a lot of people, as you know, are using the transfer portal to get their teams where they think they need to go. Pittsburgh being one of those people. Wake Forest and some others have used the transfer portal. And the ACC coming down to it's going to be a lot of that going on. A lot of there's not very many freshmen now in the ACC or the Big 12 or places like that making a mark.
It takes a long-term view to bring a freshman along, right? Like I think, right here in our backyard, Saturday, Augusta University Military Appreciation Day, like you said in Clemson, same thing here at Augusta. Well, they blow out Georgia College. They get out to a 54-27 lead over Georgia College at halftime. And two freshmen, Dimitri Gardner, 10 points in the first half. Chris Britt, 7 points in the first 3 minutes of action that he spent on the court in the first half. So 17 of those 54 points come from a couple freshmen, and that's the first, some of the first signs of life from those guys, because they don't hit a college campus ready to, by and large, ready to contribute right away. So a coach has to take a long-term view, and that's kind of rare.
Yeah, that's really what Chris Britt, of course, is a true freshman, but Dimitri Gardner is a redshirt freshman.
So you have to take a whole year of getting nothing from him.
Nothing from him, and hoping that will pay off. And they've done that in college football for years, is that they've come in redshirt freshmen and gain another year of maturity and working in the weight room and all of that. So you'll be physically ready to compete at a college level. And I think we'll see more redshirt opportunities for kids. And if you have a good basketball team, it's very tough for a freshman to come in, and especially because we had COVID. You had the COVID year and the additional year, so you have some guys playing, like I think Coach Meach's backcourt average age is 23 years old. Yeah. I mean, they are grown men, Chad. Yes. And so it takes a lot for a 17 or 18-year-old kid to break into that. And that's kind of the norm in college basketball now, that you can tell when you have men playing the game versus high school kids. And that's one of the things that I think was an unintended consequence of the transfer portal, was that it was going to disadvantage high school kids coming and playing in college right away. Definitely
an unintended consequence as well of giving everybody the extra year with COVID. I think that was good intentions. You had I think Augusta played 16 games that season. A lot of teams, some programs didn't even have a season that year, and so to give them an extra year made sense at the time. Probably still makes sense, but a byproduct of that is everybody's older. They call a lot of guys super seniors now, and so you see a ton of that. You talked about home court advantage. We talked about one freshman or a couple freshmen there. Another one that made a big impact was Jalen Hood-Schifino at Indiana, part of another home court upset win, or upset win over Purdue. Number 21 ranked Indiana beat number 1 Purdue. Indiana has since moved up to the number 18 spot in the AP rankings. Jalen Hood-Schifino had a big game. He's a freshman guard. Also, Trace Jackson Edwards had 25 points. He's a back-to-the-basket guy, as is Zach Edey for Purdue, who had 31 points and 18 rebounds. But, Coach, where do you have Indiana after the big upset or the big win?
Well, I have Indiana ranked 17th.
Okay.
And the reason I have them is because they beat number 1 Purdue. And but Indiana-Purdue is a big rivalry.
Yeah.
They both in the state of Indiana, and they battle in everything. Football, baseball, hockey, it doesn't matter. They are big rivalries at Purdue and Indiana. And so, again, I still think the Blue Bloods of the world are still going to be able to get the top freshmen, the 5-star freshmen, And you're going to see those guys at Duke and at Kentucky and North Carolina and Indiana and UCLA and places like that. Those programs are going to continue to be able to get those freshmen that are potentially one-and-done guys who will come in and play 1 year and then have an opportunity to go to the NBA and play. But what you have now is that you putting some kids on a big stage, and the stage got no bigger than number 1 Purdue coming into Indiana, and Indiana losing earlier last week. But I think Indiana may have won 6 out of their last 7 games.
That's right.
So they are a team that's coming. I didn't have them ranked last week in my top 25, but I have them as high as 17 this week, and that had a lot to do with the outstanding win against Purdue.
You mentioned that in-state rivalry. So Indiana beats Purdue, in-state rival at home. Virginia Tech beats Virginia, in-state rival at home. Virginia only moves from 6 to 8 in the AP, showing how much respect people have. Purdue stayed at number 1 in the AP, showing how much respect voters have for the whole, losing on the road. How there's no real shame in that. And then we had also Gonzaga losing at St. Mary's and UNC losing at Duke. In-state rivalries, big, at this time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, again, home court advantage, and there was no better atmosphere than at Duke, and I expect the same type of atmosphere in a couple of weeks when Duke goes to North Carolina in the Dean Dome. But again, every college basketball game I saw on this past weekend, the students made a difference in the home court advantage. Everything from Gonzaga to St. Mary's to Indiana, Purdue, Duke at North Carolina at Duke, and so forth and so on. So you're going to see that. I penalized Purdue because they did lose, and they lost to a team I didn't even have ranked last week, to Indiana. So I dropped them 3 spots. I have Houston as the number 1 team at 22-2. They've been in that spot in the top 3 all year. But Houston number 1, Alabama number 2. Alabama sits 20-3. That's a really, really good record. I have Purdue at number 3, Arizona 21-3 at 4, Tennessee at 5, coming off a tough loss. Marquette, I have this week number 6. They entered my top 10 last week. I think they came up in the AP poll. They might be in the top 10 in the AP poll.
Yeah, they're at number 10. I think they've won 10 of 11.
Yes, sir. They're good. UCLA, of course, is good. And St. Mary's has been one of the teams I've talked about all year. They're currently leading that league. They beat Gonzaga. They are currently 21-4, and I have them number 8. I have them in the top 10. And then, of course, I have Kansas State and Texas. Kansas State at 9 and Texas. I will go back and eat my words. I thought the American Conference was the best conference, but as I watch it more and more, the Big 12 is awfully good.
It's so good.
I mean, it's so good. So now they're starting to beat up on one another.
Yes.
But you got Texas, Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, who I got at 14. Oklahoma beats Alabama like a drum. I mean, a couple of weeks ago. So from top to bottom, and you better not play Texas Tech or any of those guys cheap either. Yeah. You'll get beat. So it's going to be very interesting how that all plays out. I have North Carolina State 11th in the country because I think they play in a good league, and they've been winning, and that makes a difference. And then, of course, I got UVA 12th because they did lose to Virginia Tech, an unranked team. Xavier at 13th. I think Xavier in the Big East, again, is pretty good. Marquette. Look out for Creighton. Creighton is starting to make a move. I think they've won 6 in a row. So anyone in that league that has to go through Creighton is going to have a tough order of business.
And that's the Big East, right?
That's
Creighton,
the Big East. Yeah. And Providence, so I think last week I had them at 15th. I kept them at 15th this week, even though they lost a tough game. Their record is 17-6. I have Miami at 18-5 at 16. Indiana at 17. I have Gonzaga at 18. Now, this where it gets a little bit crazy on my poll. I got Florida Atlantic, 22-2 at 19.
I like how you didn't penalize them necessarily for, I want to say, their first loss in 21 games.
Right, 22-2. I got Florida Atlantic. Then I got Kansas at 20. And they've been struggling a little bit now. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, they are 21-4.
Okay.
They got a good team,
yeah.
and they historically they used to be old Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah,
the Raging Cajuns. They've been good for a lot of years, but they're a very, very good Sun Belt team. Here's a new one for you, Chad. At number 22, I have North Texas.
Okay.
At 19-5. Yeah. And then at 23, I have Southern Miss at 21-4. Did the AP rank them this week?
They did not. These last, I think, three are teams that you've put in that the AP hasn't.
Yeah. Southern Miss. And then there's another one. At 24, I have Virginia Commonwealth.
Okay.
18-6. Out of the Atlantic 10, they have been playing really, really well. I think they won 7 in a row.
Yeah.
Look out for them. And then the 25th spot. They've been teetering around, but they're awfully good. Out of the Southern Conference, the Furman Paladins.
Yeah.
I have them at 25, and they're 19-6. And it's going to be interesting. And the tough thing about Furman is that they play in a league that probably only the league winner will get to go to the NCAA tournament. And so it's going to be interesting. These next 3 weeks are going to really tell the story, not only in this league, but in all the leagues. I don't care if you're Division III, NAIA, Division II. Augusta's got a big week.
They really do. A big 3-game stretch coming up.
Yes, and playing some good teams during that stretch. I think they play Lander.
At Lander Wednesday, then they host Young Harris Saturday. They're going to try to break the attendance record, free attendance across the board Saturday at 3:30 at Augusta University, and then coming next Wednesday, USC-Aiken coming to Augusta.
Yeah, so that's going to be that's a big week, and Lander has always given Augusta all they want at Lander.
That's true.
That's
beat Augusta last year at Lander.
Yeah, at Lander. So that's a tough one, and Lander kind of presents a little bit of the problem that Flagler presented for. They really shoot the 3-ball.
Yes.
Now, if they are hitting the 3-ball, which they traditionally have done very well at home at Lander of hitting the 3-ball, that's a tough out.
Yep.
That's a real tough out. And so Augusta have their hands full. But as you look at it, Clemson's next game is at North Carolina.
Okay.
They play on Saturday. North Carolina, I think Clemson has won one time in 55 years at North Carolina.
Right.
Once.
Yeah.
I mean, one time. So that's a big game. It's not only a big game for Clemson, but it's a really big game for North Carolina as well, because Clemson can't afford to lose to North Carolina, because that will be 3 games in a row. And that will be pretty tough heading to the ACC tournament, trying to come back from that. So again, a lot of basketball left.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting to see in the SEC. I think the SEC has a really good basketball league right now. Auburn, I didn't have them ranked. They lost. They won a really good game, but lost a tough game last week. Again, Georgia is improved. Florida has improved.
Yeah, they beat. Now, who did they beat last week? They beat Tennessee.
Beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
And that was a big one.
Yeah.
And then
they lost at Kentucky.
Then Kentucky.
Wasn't that Kentucky?
Kentucky.
Yeah.
And you got Kentucky, and you got Tennessee, Alabama. And I tell you who you better not slip on. There's 2 teams in that league you better not slip on. That's Mississippi State and Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Mississippi State is not bad.
Yeah.
They will give you all you want. And Vanderbilt has improved. You know, they hang around.
Yeah.
They hang around. And I'm pulling for Stackhouse to get it done there. But again, Chad, I would encourage anyone that listen to the podcast, if they got any questions or anything that they want to email into you or me, and we'll be glad to put it on the show and answer the questions for them.
We'll do it.
I think that'll be good.
Yeah, we'll put that word out. Great call on that. And you mentioned how, some big games coming up. That triggers a thought in my mind. I'm gonna verify it here while we're going, but I think Texas and Kansas might play tonight. Talk about a big game.
Oh,
let's see. Is that tonight? I'm gonna have it for you in 1 second, Coach. I thought I was. Where is it? Of course, they give me football. I don't want to see football. College basketball odds.
I know exactly. Let's see. I'll tell you who exactly is going to play.
Yeah, so tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, Texas versus Kansas. I want to know where that game will be played now.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. Okay, Duke plays at Miami.
Okay.
Tonight.
Okay.
Big game.
So
Duke at Miami. Let's see. Who else? Texas at Kansas tonight, 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are big games. Let's see. Tuesday we'll have several big games too. Rutgers at Indiana, both 16-7.
Both ranked in the top 25.
Rutgers is good. Rutgers is not in my, but they could be. Marquette at UConn tomorrow night. Big game.
2 top 25 teams there.
Cincinnati at Tulane. Big game. North Carolina at Wake Forest, huge game. Auburn at Texas A&M tomorrow night, a tremendous game as well. Let's see. Louisville at Pitt. Pitt's better. Pitt's doing good. Louisville can't beat them at Pitt. North Carolina State at Virginia tomorrow night. Put that on your calendar.
Okay.
North Carolina State at Virginia.
That's Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Okay.
And then another good one on Tuesday night. Arkansas at Kentucky.
Okay.
Big game. And a game that I think will be very, very interesting is that Nevada, who's 18-6, will play New Mexico, who's 19-4.
Okay.
Big game in the Big West. So we got some great basketball coming, man, and it'll just change, and it's going to be interesting. And again, Chad, I just think what I'm trying to do is help fans understand when you get to your brackets at the end of as you pick your Final Four brackets and all of that, and March Madness, is that there's some teams out there that don't come from the big conferences, but will give some of the Power 5 conferences all they want in the first and second round. And I expect the tournament to be as exciting this year as it's ever been.
Me too. Well, thanks, Coach. We're gonna publish your top 25, compare it to the AP, and get ready for these big games this week. And thanks for another.
Well, I think the story of the week, though, Chad, is I'm trying to tell you a story of the week.
Yeah, I forgot about
week.
that. Sorry.
Let's give kudos and congratulations to Don Staley and the University of South Carolina winning. Mm-hmm. Huge win yesterday to go 23-0 and to beat Connecticut at Connecticut in front of 15,000. Sold out crowd was good for the game of college basketball. And I'm so proud of what Don has done there. Women's basketball is getting better and better. I think the WNBA is making some adjustments for women's basketball to give them better travel and all of that. I think it's long overdue. Again, my story of the week is definitely kudos to the University of South Carolina and Dawn Staley and her Gamecocks.
I wish I knew what Ariema was so mad about when he threw something on the ground and he came out on that court. I thought he was going to go get that referee. I wish I knew what he was mad about. I kind of wish I knew what he threw. I didn't even know what he threw. So that was an interesting moment of that game as well.
He's a competitor, and he's what makes the game. And what the University of South Carolina has done is kind of, at one time, the only women's college basketball you talked about was UConn
Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
Yeah.
You know, Pat Summitt and the job she did a great Pat Summitt. But Dawn Staley and what she's doing at the University of South Carolina is historical. She's been to, I think, 3 Final Fours. She's won 2. Her team this year is on their way back, man.
Yeah.
They're very, very good.
Yeah. Now, my ignorance, I'm going to show it. Texas, is that where she played? Or was it Tennessee? It Tennessee?
No. Dawn played at the University of Virginia.
Virginia, okay.
And she was Player of the Year at the University of Virginia, and they won the national championship. And then she went and starred in the WNBA, won the WNBA championship or 2. But more importantly than that, she became the head coach at Temple University and got the opportunity to work alongside the great John Chaney there. And then from there, she's gone to the University of South Carolina, and she has turned the game of women's basketball into a really exciting game. And I've always said, Chad, I wish they would lower the basket in women's basketball to 9 feet.
Yeah.
They did a great job about 15, maybe 20 years ago of making the ball smaller.
Yeah.
Remember, they made the ball smaller because women's hands are not as big as men's hands. That was a game changer for the game. I encourage the NCAA and even Pro Ball, if they took the women's basket down to from 10 feet to 9 feet, it would be just as exciting with the men's game because you'd have more dunks, more plays above the rim, and all of that. So that's my plug for lowering the basket in women's basketball.
I love it. The reason why I asked where she played, I was in 9th grade when I turned on ESPN. I think that was the first year they ever had the Final Four women's basketball on television, and she was the first women's basketball player that I ever watched.
Yeah, she's good. She's very, very good, but she really does a good job of coaching her team and getting them ready for the big moment. And the moments didn't get any bigger than her going and playing at Connecticut yesterday.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Chad. See you next week.
Yep.